Greetings, fellow travelers. This is Gun the Savvy, here with an episode of Game Master Gun, here to talk about something that I see often forgotten in role-playing games. Odor, scent, smell. It's the scent. It's the sense in humans that is most closely related to memory. And yet, I've been in a lot of games, and I've seen a lot of games where it's never used, it's never described, it never comes up as an issue, even though it can be used to add a whole nother level to a role-playing game. So, for example, or not for example, but setting a scene in a role-playing game can be a hazard. It can be very difficult for a game master. What would be a normal 10 by 10 room can often be completely unforgettable and just another fucking place where you can put enemies. But it doesn't need to be that way. And there's lots of tips and tricks out there, but nobody really focuses on scent. So, for example, if you had a simple 10 by 10 room and you had the barrels of meat on the side of the wall, and dust has covered the entire room, and there's an old carpet that got wet and it's starting to mold. You could just describe it that way. Or you could say that, in this cramped corridor, the smell of a dusty old bar fills your nose, jarring you as you enter. The smell of mold, smell of mold sickens and disgusts you. And you can even use that as a role-playing element in the scene, that maybe the smell is so bad that they start taking penalties on whatever they're doing. And that's in a fantasy. I'm using a fantasy setting example, but you could do the same thing in a futuristic RPG like what's that one that What's His Bucket plays all the time? Shadowrun. If you were doing it in Shadowrun, it could be if they have one of those bionic arms that you can get in Shadowrun, maybe he isn't taking care of it, and it's a little bit pussy, and you can kind of smell it. We'll get into characters here in a second. One thing I wanted to focus on first was you can also use it with monsters in the game or creatures, because a lot of these creatures, and I'm looking through the 3.5 monster manual here. I prefer Pathfinder, but I bought into D&D 3.5 when I was younger, when it first came out, and since the Pathfinder books are $60 a piece, and I know some of you guys are going to correct me. You're going to say, "Well, hey, if you go here, it's 5 minutes or it's $5," but I just haven't bought into it yet. Everybody I know plays 3.5. I'm trying to get them into Pathfinder, but I digress. For example, just looking through this right here, looking through the monster manual, maybe you have an Odor in your campaign, and if you guys can't see this, I'll pop up a picture in the video, but the Odor is this dwarven-like, it's not a demon, it's an outsider from the plane of fire, but it's constantly burning. So before you ever see this thing, before you get the chance to describe it or to even hear it, you're going to smell this guy. You're going to smell burning cinders, and you're going to smell maybe it got into a fight with another creature and you smell burning hair and flesh, or any of those things. And though they have never seen a plane of fire or a burning silverish dwarf creature, they will know what the smell of a fireplace is, or the smell of burning hair, because everybody at one point in time has had a cat that walks over a candle. That's a long story. We'll get into that later. And it's a good way to introduce that creature before it ever gets close. So I've been using a lot of bad examples, though. It can go the other way. And I'll put this away before I just start reading it. Pixies. Nobody has ever seen pixies. Well, at least in real life. Unless you watch the movie Hook. And then you have the pixie in that. But beer. It's delicious. They've never seen a pixie, but maybe as they get close to a pixie encampment, or the pixies are creeping up on them, maybe one of the characters with a higher perception skill or a higher wisdom score smells flowers in the air in an area where maybe there's not a lot of flowers, and automatically the characters are going to know that something's up. They're going to think about it. They're not going to know what it is, but they're going to wonder, well, why is this a thing? Why can I smell this? And it's just a really good way to start an introduction. It need not be monsters either. You could do it with NPCs. and in fact, this is one that I use a lot. Is of course the PCs always the players always meet up in a bar, and maybe you have the town drunk, and everybody just always describes that the town drunk is stumbling upon around, and he's making a fool of himself. But if you've ever hung around someone that loves beer as much as I do, you'll notice that they've got the smell of beer on them, and that old smell of beer, and you can use that as a little bit of NPC flair. Is that the drunk walks up to you and gets right in your face and, "Hey guy, let me tell you, on the side of town, there's a dragon." And dig my acting skills that come into D&D all the time, but there's a dragon on the other side of town. And maybe they don't even hear the words he's saying because they're too caught up on the fact that he just reeks. He's got body odor, the smell of old beer. Maybe he's favors the tobacco, so he smells like pipe tobacco. And it makes it more than just the town drunk. It's the stinky town drunk now. Likewise, you could have characters that wear entirely too much perfume. Everybody's had that old lady in their life at one point in time that wears way too much perfume. And it's the old lady perfume, and oh my god, it just like burns your nostrils. And you can use that to your advantage. Is maybe the queen of the kingdom is a nice person and everything, but she wears way too much perfume, and it's nasty, and it's hard to be around her. And though she's nice, and the players want to be nice to her, it's kind of awkward, etc., etc. So I've been describing. Oh, good. I've been describing one side of it, but likewise, you can flip it around and have the players either suffer or benefit from odor. And this is a big one, because early in the adventures, around levels 1 to 6 or whatever, you've got and it doesn't matter if you're playing D&D, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, any of those, but they have to go on the adventure in the sewer, and it's a quintessential cliche of all D&D games. Checking up on Bob. Bob's eating salad right now. He goes wild over strawberries, but they have to take the adventure into the sewer. And oftentimes you'll notice that the PCs don't remember to bathe after they get out of the sewers. They'll go down, they'll adventure, they're killing rats, they're getting bitten, they're hanging around carrion crawlers and all this stuff. And then right after they get out of the sewer, they go and talk to the noble of the land to say, "Hey, we completed the adventure, where's our gold?" And you can use this as they try to do a diplomacy check, they're trying to get more gold out of the noble or whatever. But they still reek of shit. They didn't bathe off. They didn't even go to a river and jump in or anything. They reek of shit. So maybe their diplomacy checks start to fail, and they don't think why, because they've been in it so long they can't smell it. So they have to start thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? And in fact, I had one player that he was a half-orc barbarian, and he purposefully kept himself just dirty as he could be. Just nasty dirty. And what he would do is he would use it to his advantage and intimidate checks in the middle of battle. Because as he drew into melee, he made the argument that he stunk so bad it made other people vomit in disgust as they were around him. So he'd rush into battle and do his intimidate check. "I'm gonna kill you!" And of course, the whoever's fighting is trying not to puke everywhere. And it was a very interesting way for him to roleplay, using that forgotten sense. And I always had to admire that. I always had to take a little bit of note for that little bit of ingenuity. So I think that's about all I can say on the topic. Is don't forget that it's a very important sense that you can use to your advantage. The players can use it to their advantage. You just can't let it go forgotten. And there's plenty of creatures in the Monsters Manual and other monster manuals for different games that you can really just look at them and think, okay, what is this? What is something that I can layer upon just, it's a... Oh God. Okay, here, one more, and then we'll call it quits. But this right here, the scum. I always love scum. It's always a funny creature to toss in, because it's a lot like a slag. But, in fact, I think... No, this version doesn't have anything like that. There are a couple of monsters that specifically says that getting close to them, it stinks so bad you start vomiting. And in fact, in the Monster Manual 2, and I won't pull it up because it would take me forever, there's a creature called the Drown that, because of the way it died, it's surrounded by like this watery mist that if the players get too close to it, they can smell it at first, and then they actually start drowning as they get closer to it. And I've actually damn near got a TPK on that. They fell into what was essentially a cesspot, someone's toilet, at one point in time, and it was a drowned body down there, living with remorse, and it jumps up and it grabs I think it was the wizard that fell down there, and then the ranger followed. But it grabs the wizard, and immediately the wizard rolls a fortitude save and gets a 2, of course, and just instantly goes down. And it ignores it because the ranger is still moving around. So it moves past the wizard and gets to the ranger. Out of the 6 people in the party, those 2 jumped down there. Nobody went to help them, of course. And that's the best part, is nobody jumped down there to help them. But, you know, that it started off with, it smells salty down here, and that's strange because it's a cesspot. And then they jump, one falls down, the other one jumps, and it turns out that the scent actually was an indicator of something far worse. But they weren't really thinking about it, and they'd never seen them drown before. But yeah, scum are sewer creatures. They're sewer lizards. And you just have to imagine they've got algae growing on them. They're lizard-esque. Sorry, Bob. They're lizard-esque. And they probably... They got little nostrils, so they must be able to smell, but I can't imagine that they take too much thought to that, considering they're covered in algae and all kinds of nasty crap. But it's just something to think about. Same way with you'll find a zombie in every single game, you know, so that way the cleric has something to use his turn undead on. But zombies stink, and maybe after fighting zombies, especially if you're a monk, after fighting zombies for an hour, you're gonna smell like rotting flesh, and you're gonna have another thing to think about hygiene-wise is the monk or anybody with a claw attack, so like shifters in Eberron, or if you're lucky enough to have a Rakshasa in the party, when they do their claw attacks on the zombies, it's going to get up under their fingernails, their hands are going to stink, and no player ever thinks about, hey, I want to go take a bath. So use it to your advantage. Let your players remind them that they can use it to their advantage, and it just adds some more depth to your game. Until next time, take it easy, guys.